Hello lads and lasses, welcome back to my channel with another couple month break between my upload schedule as per usual. Today I want to get back into this kind of game a bit lighter than usual and without an actual review or kind of thoughts experiment. Because I'm actually deciding to work on larger projects than I have been before, making them a bit more organized, making them a bit more better edited, longer, of course, naturally, as that follows with a better produced project, and something that will hopefully be more interesting on review of multiple times rather than you kind of half-assing listening to it. I just want to make my content a bit better for you guys and for myself as well. This is just to get back into it, and I thought it'd be a great idea to start off with a lighter video today, and then develop into a bit more higher kind of budget ones that take longer to produce. But I think this is a good context so that I at least introduce my list for Assassin's Creed games before I go in and review each one of them. And as such, I think today is a great day just to take the easy format and do the tier kind of system that everybody has done before, and just to go to tier maker, find a tier, and just briefly discuss on why I think each game deserves a spot where I put it in based on that list. Lovely. So to get started, I'm going to be using this tier maker kind of list. I already found this one. I think this one works the best. So it goes from the top rank to, Ubisoft Quebec down here. Although not every Ubisoft Quebec game is going to end up in that kind of thing, but I think it's indicative where that belongs. So I'm just going to go from left to right. Now, the bar here does have the repeats of the same games. So I'm going to have, it's going to be also half full in the bottom because I'm not going to repeat the same game twice for no reason. So I don't know. It's just the way someone developed this tier maker list, though. That wasn't me who made it. So starting off, I think let's just go from left to right as they appear in order. Let's start with Brotherhood. Now, Brotherhood is an SS tier. This is an amazing game. It is an amazing sequel. It develops all the core elements that AC2 sets up, but makes them better. So not only is it a great sequel because it does everything that sequels should do, so it expands the world, it expands the character, and it adds new stuff to it. It also it's just a great game because it just continues Ezio's kind of story. I think also the story behind it makes it great because the storyline of its creation was like they made it in 8 months, I think, which is just an amazing feat to me as a person who's also dabbling in game creation. So just knowing that makes it, one of the best games I've ever heard of in its production. Plus, it's like, it's AC Brotherhood, the most innovative Assassin's Creed game there is. Also, considering the Revelations does copy a lot of the elements from Brotherhood, so even though it does have its own things, majority of it is from Brotherhood, and a lot of the core staples of Assassin's Creed is coming from Brotherhood. So that's why it deserves the SS tier. We'll get to it when I get to actually figure out the perfect locations for each one. Right now they're just loose, and then once we get to the close, I'm going to reassemble them. So Assassin's Creed 1. Assassin's Creed 1 is an amazing game. I had a chance to replay it a bit earlier this year at the beginning of it, and honestly, I don't remember it being this great, but replaying it now, with all the context of what Assassin's Creed has become, I think it's brilliant. I think it's brilliant because not only does it do everything that Assassin's Creed should do, it also does better than some things that the Ezio trilogy does, and in that being the element of being gray in Assassin's Creed as opposed to just black and white. So in the Ezio trilogy, it is very much evident that the assassins are good guys, Templars are bad guys, and there is no, there's no distinction between. There's no like nuance or context to that, and it works great for that game series. It works great for the story they were going for. But the thing is, Assassin's Creed 1 does this great because in the first game, assassins aren't painted as the heroes. You have Al-Mualim, your mentor who betrays their brotherhood, who himself breaks the tenets. Altair becomes the new master assassin. He's the one who leads the brotherhood after he kills Al-Mualim. And yet, well, not now, but point being is that it begins up in the story, of course. But point being is that Altair is also a person who violated the core tenets, and yet he becomes the greatest assassin to ever live. The point is that Altair is a great character, the entire Brotherhood is a great character, and the Templars aren't bad. When you have the confessions with them, they have to a degree an element of understanding behind what their actions are. Not all of them, of course. A lot of them are like monsters, but some of them are reasonable, and there's fair points to be made from their sides. So I think the game achieves a well-developed story. I also think it does amazing stuff for the fact that it got released in 2007, I believe, for the feat that that game did at its time. Deserves the praise it is. So it's an S tier game for me. Moving on, AC2. I think it is a hard battle to get like an SS tier and then an S tier, because like which one do you have more than one game in the SS tier as opposed to the S tier? I think because I want to keep the SS tier just one game, I'm going to put every game that I think comes close to it just in the S tier, just to indicate that Assassin's Creed Brotherhood should be considered as the best AC game. But then again, I think AC2 comes close to it, so I think it's fair to say that they tie. I think they tie, although Brotherhood is naturally better. So, I mean, let's just break down 2. Breaking down 2 is that, first of all, it does work on top of what the first game did. It introduces Ezio, an amazing character. It introduces new mechanics. It introduces amazing characters like Leonardo da Vinci. It develops Desmond's story by letting him escape, and then you learn more about the modern-day assassins and the conflict that's going on now against Abstergo and the Templars. I think it's great in that sense, in the way that it develops that. Although I still think that what's being developed in Brotherhood is many times better than AC2. But AC2 does that foundation, and I think for what it did was just amazing, so it deserves an SS tier. AC3. AC3 is one of the controversial titles in Assassin's Creed. When I started playing Assassin's Creed, it was early 2015. So Syndicate, I'm not sure if it got released at that point, but I played AC3 first. AC3 was my first Assassin's Creed game that I did play. So it's hard for me to say how much how much of my praise towards it is as much bias as it is genuine kind of appreciation for what the game is. I think, though, that 3 has an element of being a good game. I think that when you sit down and play 3 without the context of the other Assassin's Creed games, it's pretty good. I think it does for its time innovative stuff. You have changing seasons. You have the American frontier. You have the story where you get to meet these historical people. Now, for many people, I understand why 3 isn't their favorite, especially since it follows the Ezio trilogy, when it follows Altair and it ends Desmond's arc. I understand why people don't like it and don't treat it as a good Assassin's Creed game, because for them, a lot of people who don't like AC3 believe that AC2, Brotherhood, and Revelations +1 are what Assassin's Creed games should be. And they are totally correct in what they believe in, but I think that a lot of them say it's like one of the worst games they've ever played. I disagree with that. I think a lot of the stuff that AC3 does is very well developed. I think it's been hindered by what Ubisoft has done to the series since. I think that it was naturally it should have been the final act to the series if Ubisoft didn't milk it. I like the fact that there is so much stuff in it that was actually taken for later games. So Black Flag's main element, core gameplay that everybody praises, is the ship battles. But that was first developed in AC3. And not giving that credit to AC3, I believe, is incorrect. So for me, it's a B tier game. Purely because I think that Connor could have been a bit better developed. Although I think it depends on how well you read into it. I think I might be giving the writers a bit too much credit by saying that Connor was well developed in the sense where it's natural for him to have PTSD. But also I think there is an element where the game ends with you hunting down all the Templars naturally, but nothing necessarily changes, and I feel the effect that should have brought on Connor should be more significant. Instead, it's left to kind of prologue a mission kind of cutscenes where Connor notices that slavery is still a thing, or his village wasn't saved. He notices the stuff, but I feel like it should have been more incorporated and more better developed for it to be a better finalizing act for Connor himself. But as it stands, it's a B game. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, it should be an F." No, I think it's a B. I think that if you compartmentalize this game as separate and you realize what it represents, the fact that it has Haytham Kenway, I think it's a B level tier game. Black Flag for me is A. It's on S tier. I know a lot of people would want to put it into the S tier because they love the game, and that's fine. I think my issue is that Black Flag has great Assassin's Creed elements. It has great gameplay elements. But my issue with Black Flag is the lack of the modern day and the fact that Black Flag noticeably began the trend of continuing extending the series unnecessarily. For me, Black Flag is the prologue to the entire series. It's like, what happened after Desmond? What's the point? Like, there's no point of doing it. Here's a fun game experience. Here is Connor's ancestors. Here's Connor's and Haytham's ancestor. Have fun as a pirate, but also learn a bit more about the assassins. There's no more need for Assassin's Creed games, but that's where they developed this whole fucking bullshit with the sages, and I think it doesn't deserve the S tier for that because of this element. Origins, honestly, in the last couple of years, Origins for me fell down significantly on the list. When it came out, I initially said it was on par with Black Flag, but at this point, I feel like it's fallen for me because of what it represents. Again, similar to Black Flag, this represents a more severe downfall into the creation of games like Odyssey and Valhalla. I also went back and replayed it and also realized that none of the side characters are memorable. Like, none of them are. Like, sure, you could have Aya, but Aya is memorable because you spent a good time with her. But the other ones aren't memorable. I literally cannot name you the other names other than Shadia and the Scarab, and I only remember them is because the Scarab is truly the only villain in the game that is actually memorable, and Shadia is the one that was used in marketing and it was supposed to be this thing that was supposed to be, oh, it's traumatic for Bayek, but in reality it was just the third child that died because of Bayek. And Bayek honestly is a good character. I like Bayek, but he's more developed in the DLCs than he is in the main game, which I feel shouldn't be the marker of the main game. I feel like you should base the game's rating on the base game, and then the DLCs should be, you could value the DLCs as in context, but also Origins should have developed Bayek a bit better. It should have developed the Assassin's Brotherhood a bit better, and it should have given more context to it, because then what ended up happening is a lot of the stuff that was done for fan service just felt a bit flat, and some people might find that valuable, but also, like, personally, for example, the Leap of Faith was great. It introduced how the assassins weren't supposed to be fearless. They can jump off high cliffs and not die. That was handled well. But then the Assassin's Creed Insignia, that was poorly executed because it was just a eagle skull that someone just put into the ground. And I was like, what the fuck is this? What's the point of this? What's the significance of the eagle other than you have Senu? There's no significance. Senu is never explained. I think there's a lot of fault with the way that the gameplay plays. Combat isn't amazing, but the world is amazing. I want to say this: the world is great. But the world doesn't carry the game, right? Otherwise, you would just be playing Discovery Tour, and that's all Assassin's Creed is. It's not a Discovery Tour. It's an Assassin's Creed game based in a historical location that doesn't necessarily have to be accurate to how it was, as long as it's a good game. But Origins does it well. But Origins isn't a great game, and like mechanically, it's decent, but also story-wise, it's kind of crappy. So I don't think it deserves an A tier, but it definitely deserves a B tier. Now, Odyssey, we know where it is. I already reviewed Odyssey, and I reviewed its DLC. I'm not going to go deeper into it. Fuck this game. Revelations. S tier. S tier. My question is it on par with 1? Is it better or is it worse than 1? I think it's better because it encompasses both of these storylines. They're very equal in a sense, but I think Revelations is great because of the way it tells its story. So you have the converging of the storyline of Ezio and Altair. How Altair dies being an assassin, but Ezio realizes, look, that's not, I'm done. I'm fucking out of this. Have a good day. Have a good one. I think that's great. I think it's great to be able to experience that. I like the development of Subject 16. I like the development of Desmond's mentality and conscience. I like all that. I also like those additional content where he talks about the farm, Desmond, meaning the farm and stuff. I like those puzzles. So S tier, better than AC1, simply because it has more to offer. But AC1 is still a very good game. Rogue. Rogue for me, I like Rogue for one sole reason. It's a condensed experience of Black Flag, and I really like Black Flag. But thing is, Shay isn't a good character. There is no good story. The only reason I can even put it, let's say, at a D tier is because it's just gameplay-wise very well done, like Black Flag is. That's really it. It's an amazing game. In terms of mechanics, story-wise, it's a bit flawed. What they do is end up just switching the roles of the Templars and the Assassins. It's like, oh, there's no nuance given. It's just the Assassins are bad in this game, but the Templars are good, despite the Templars still being bad. But you're supposed to take them as good. And then Shay supposedly has this inner conflict. Oh, I was an assassin. I don't really trust the Templars. But that's never shown because Shay just follows the Templars anyways all the time, which is just a bit boring and falls flat for a game that's supposed to be questioning the Brotherhood. He doesn't question the Brotherhood very much. So D. Syndicate, F. 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 I think that when I played Syndicate first, I enjoyed it mechanically, but now in retrospective, it's not that good. Is it F? It's F. In retrospect, it's not nearly as bad as it's not nearly as good as I imagined it, because first of all, the location is a bit crappy for an Assassin's Creed game. The animations are shit, like in terms of parkour. The parkour is it's just watered down version. It's less watered down than Origins, but Origins had a development and it wasn't a mockery of the Assassin's Creed fan base, really. So I think F is a fine spot for it. Unity for me is a bit better than Rogue. How do I do this? Yeah, it's a bit better than your Rogue. I might as well put it in C tier. Unity is fine. It falls flat in its story. I don't think that Arno was developed well in the main game. The free side DLC is good, but it shouldn't be counted despite anything because it wouldn't be free had Unity released properly, but it didn't. Also, the Unity highlights a lot of its focus on forcing multiplayer, despite the fact that multiplayer simply doesn't work anymore, and it's very hard to grind it out. Arna's not well developed. I don't like Elise, the way they kind of treated her in the game. They could have done to her a bit better, but instead it just became the simp love story where Arno followed everything that Elise did, while Elise never gave a flying fuck about Arno. So I don't understand the point of it. There's no satisfaction to it. Arno doesn't necessarily interact with the assassins much. He kills Balek. There's this whole underground war going on, but Arno doesn't interact with it. That's my issue. It's like there's an interesting thing to explore here with the idea that the Templars and assassins are making a peace deal, but it's not explored. It's just, oh yeah, no, Arno comes around, and at the same time, coincidentally, the thing is ruined, and now Arno has to fucking kill everybody to fix some semblance of peace. Valhalla. Valhalla is, in my opinion, better than Origins. I find it better than Origins. But it's not better than any of the Assassin's Creed games because Ivor isn't an assassin. They set up this game as if Ivor becomes an assassin. They keep on telling these stories. And I'm going to discuss more about Valhalla in my review of it once the DLCs come out because my plan is to give a retrospective on that. But as a quick glance, it's better than Origins because of the story it tells. It has much more memorable side characters and much more memorable story than Origins. And mechanically, it's a bit better than Origins, I feel. Like the combat, I know people are dissing the combat for Valhalla, but I find it better than anything that Odyssey or Origins did. So for these three entries into this mythology bullshit, it's the better combat that has been offered. I do have a lot of issues with it gameplay-wise. That's why it's not necessarily amazing game, but also it suffers from the same downfall that Origins and Odyssey does. But also, it was a decent experience. When I played it, I didn't fucking hate myself as much as I hated playing like Odyssey. I hated myself playing Odyssey, but these games I don't hate. They're playable games. if you want to play them, but they're just not good Assassin's Creed games. Valhalla is a fine game. It has assassins to a degree. It has Templars to a degree. It furthers the plot to a degree. It has a weird, satisfying modern day ending. It's all weird, but it's written well, so it's hard for me to say how well it is. And honestly, I think this is where it's hard. It's hard for me because now I'm thinking about it, and maybe it should be looking more like this. Yeah, that's how it should look. I should have given them the C tier because the games developed in the Origins gameplay system shouldn't be viewed as good Assassin's Creed games because they don't have social stealth. They don't have proper Assassin's Creed combat. They don't have proper assassinations, mind that. They don't have parkour for shit. None of these, neither Valhalla, Origins, or Odyssey have any parkourable cities that are fun to parkour with, and everything just feels like a drag. So it's a C tier game. It's good, but it's good for the reasons that I can't say it's a good Assassin's Creed game, but I can't say it's a bad one either. For example, I can say Cynic is a bad Assassin's Creed game despite having better mechanics than Valhalla because it mocks the series, and yet Valhalla doesn't. It's so long, it's hard for me to say if it's justified to have such a high ranking, to be honest. I feel I might be a bit hypocritical towards something like Syndicate, but I think this list will fix. I think I'm going to release another list when I'm done my reviews of these games, and then we can then look at how I changed my opinions, having then replayed them for all these reviews, and then maybe we can see how I had a different preconceived notion. So I think it'll be interesting when I wrap up my entire investigations into the series with another list. But that's it for today, guys, and thanks for tuning in, and sorry if this was boring. I tried to give my explanation a bit better, and this is a bit brief. This is just for the future. Honestly, this could be just referred back to, just scroll to the end. But honestly, that's really it. Have a good one, and I'll be posting better videos a bit later.